Zipper rolls out to the right, pitches off to Taylor, and Taylor's to the 20, down to the 15, down to the 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Billy Taylor scored a touchdown from 21 yards out. The crowd goes berserk. It was November 22nd, 1969. That they came to Barry, Michigan, all dressed in maize and blue. The words were said, the prayers were read, and everybody cried. But when they closed the coffin, there was someone else inside. Oh, they came to Barry, Michigan, but Michigan wasn't dead. And when the game was over, it was someone else instead. 11 Michigan Wolverines put on the gloves of gray, and as the organ played the victors, they laid Woody Hayes away. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue, and welcome to our Visitors Edition. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Next week, the calendar rolls over to November, and the stretch run commences for Michigan football. This week, we get a bit of a break, though, with the bye. Joining us will be the national college football writer for The Athletic, Nicole Auerbach. First, my view from Section 17 to get us going. Other than rehashing what happened in East Lansing last Saturday, it's been a quiet week around here. The players are getting some downtime, healing up, and preparing for Penn State and the home stretch. We moved up to number 5 in the AP poll this week and are the only undefeated team in Big Ten play. I, for one, am ready to leave the Spartan fiasco in the rearview mirror for now until next November. For the first time in a long time, I feel good about where we are headed into November. I'm not really overconfident, but I do believe this could be a November to remember, and in a good way. Penn State rolls into town next week with 2 losses, and they have not played well over the last 3 weeks, losing to Ohio State, Michigan State, and then really hanging on last week in Bloomington against the Hoosiers. They still have plenty of talent, and they are going to be ready to play next Saturday. We'll have plenty of time to talk about that on next week's shows. Our guest today knows her stuff. For the last 6 years, she was the national college football writer at USA Today. You've probably seen her on BTN as a studio analyst and a guest quite often too. This year she joined The Athletic and became their national writer covering college football. She is widely recognized as one of the best young sports writers in America. She also happens to be a U of M alum. Nicole Auerbach is up next here on The Michigan Man on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. With us on our visitors segment this week is senior writer from The Athletic, Nicole Auerbach. Nicole, wonderful to finally have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, Nicole, on Monday, you wrote a piece in The Athletic. It was titled, "Rivalry Hits a New Level When Michigan Hates Michigan State Back." And as you said, Jim Harbaugh is not one to say something he doesn't mean, but what happened on Saturday, he's not going to let it go, is he?
No, and I mean, I love it. I think it's funny. I think we're at the point now you're just getting statements on statements on statements about the timing down to the minute and second of the pregame routine. I mean, I think it's great. I think it's fun. I think rivalries kind of need people on both sides who actively dislike each other. I think it's more fun that way. I thought Chase Winovich's comments at the end of the game were great. I think it's entertaining, and it's just, you know, there's been 2 other recent seasons with Michigan, and, you know, the dominant one was that, you know, they're dismissive. It's not the biggest rivalry game to Michigan or Michigan fans. and that bothers state fans. And then Michigan's not good and can't beat State. And then that's a whole different, feel to that rivalry over the last decade or so. And now you've got two teams that are, pretty evenly matched. You've got a lot of dislike on both sides. You've got Harbaugh kind of taking a page out of D'Antonio's playbook with kind of, finding a perceived slight and making it into a huge deal. And I think it's good for the rivalry. It's good for, the state of Michigan. It just makes it more fun when you've got people taking jabs at each other.
Well, absolutely. I think most Michigan fans agree. I mean, this reaction is a far cry from Brady Hoke's apology to Spartan Nation, back in 2014 for that spear incident. We all remember it. I think a lot of Michigan fans are saying right now, hey, it's about time. Let's admit we hate them, which really has not been the case for a long time in this series, Nicole.
Right, and I think then, bringing up Brady Hoke's apology, I think that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way because, it's a couple players, go out there, put a stake down, whatever. I mean, there has been far worse things on both sides of this rivalry, and to apologize to your rival is just, and saying it's not good sportsmanship. I mean, it's a rivalry. It's not supposed to have great sportsmanship. So I much prefer this where you have everyone just doubling down and saying that they refuse to apologize than coming close to apologizing for something, because I'm with you. I mean, I think it's better just to admit you don't like each other and just keep going from there. I think, it's got a lot of people already counting down the days till next year, which is the whole point. And that's what makes it fun.
What's interesting is that we are all focused here in Michigan during Michigan State week. But Saturday's game turned out to be ESPN's second highest rated noon start this year, meaning this rivalry plays very well nationally too, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think, people know a lot about both coaches, to that point. And I think that there's a lot of curiosity nationally about how good is this Michigan team. And I think, that's why you had game day there for the Wisconsin game, and people coming away from that really impressed, and then people coming away from the State game also really impressed because you knew what you're getting with the defense. But I think people have been kind of peeking in each Saturday to see, how much they're really opening the offense with Shea Patterson, how much can they score, because we've seen for a couple of years now, they'd have to try to win games really low scoring and maybe with a pick six because the offense wasn't reliable. So I think people are, just trying to figure out how much better Michigan's gotten since the opener against Notre Dame and just coming away impressed each week. And I kind of think, I was talking to someone about this yesterday, I think that they are, Harbaugh harping on this pregame incident and stuff, it's probably much better for his players and his team to kind of be rehashing this or whatever on a bye week instead of listening to all the people saying how good they are now. And so that's an interesting kind of side effect, or maybe it's the main point of kind of keeping this war of words going.
I thought it was interesting. Sunday morning I was talking to a couple of my Alabama buddies, and they were saying, hey, this game seems nastier than Alabama-Auburn does down there. I mean, you cover it nationally. Do you think it ranks as one of the nastiest rivalries in college football?
Well, I think in-state rivalries in general are very different beasts than other ones, and I think that it definitely is to some extent. I mean, with Michigan State, you always have, so many people who go and tailgate and get involved in the game days that don't go to the game, that are just there for that atmosphere, that energy, for all the divided households and all of that. And I think there is that animosity, that maybe is different with some, when you have some rivalries that are, maybe separated by more distance within a state, or if they're so lopsided, it's, sometimes you don't have that. So I think it's up there with all the best in-state rivalries. There's a reason that they won't make Michigan State a night game. They don't think the fans can coexist that long. And so you also don't see that. Some of these other fan bases do get, the benefit of the doubt, and they will schedule night games and let the fan bases interact all day and tailgate together, which is probably not the best idea with Michigan State. So, yeah, I think, again, you already had that animosity between the fan bases year-round, and so I think that now we're just seeing it reflected with the coaches and some of the players, which, does match, that there is a lot of hatred and frustration. And it's because every single family in Michigan, you're gonna know somebody on both sides, and you're gonna have those divided flags and uniforms and different things. You're gonna have people who went to state but grew up Michigan fans being very torn, and all that stuff's great. So I do think it's right up there, with all the heated in-state rivalries.
Well, Penn State is up next for Michigan. It's the bye week, as we know, and then it's Rutgers and Indiana. If Michigan can take care of business against those three teams, it comes down to Thanksgiving weekend, Columbus. Jim's got to beat Ohio State sometime. We all know that. Do you think it might be this year?
Well, it's hard to tell right now because, Ohio State was thoroughly, beaten in every phase of the game against Purdue. And you can't expect that Ohio State's going to play that poorly against Michigan. And we all know that. But so, it just depends how close they look to that. Because, I think that one of the things that jumped out was how weak Ohio State was at kind of responding to being punched in the mouth in that game. And I saw people floating on Twitter saying that they looked soft, and they really did defensively, with all the missed tackles and just the lack of focus, lack of physicality. And those are things that Michigan has. Michigan is a physical team, and they're going to be able to push the Buckeyes around. And, that game is so special and so different, and everyone plays up for it. And so, no one's going to give away that game, but I do think, if Michigan continues on this trajectory where the offense continues to improve, the O-line continues to improve, it's going to be a really interesting matchup. And especially at that point, if both are playing for, a spot in the Big Ten title game, which means that, maybe you're in the driver's seat for the playoff as well. I think it'll be really interesting. But, yeah, I think, you knocked off one of the rivals. That's something that's been a monkey on Harbaugh's back. And Ohio State's the big one. That's the one that he hasn't gotten yet. And I think, this team is built. This team is good enough to do it. It's just going to come down to execution on that day. And like I said, how well Ohio State plays, because we know how good they can be offensively. I have lots of questions about them defensively, but also how close are they going to play to the way that they did on Saturday, where they were just beaten in every phase of the game by a team that really, you have a great coach, you have a very consistent quarterback. There's a lot of confidence on that Purdue team, but talent-wise, they should not have been close in that game. And so you're going to have a very talented and strong team that's, ideally very confident as well if Michigan's able to, run through this part of the schedule leading up to that. So I think it's going to be really fascinating. It's fascinating every year, but even more so if Michigan is the team that people expect to win that game.
Well, on the national scene, Nicole, it's been a crazy year with the top 10 teams going down almost every week, which is, it's great for the fans, great for the game. Alabama being the exception, they just look unstoppable right now, don't they?
They do, and it's actually been interesting to see that you have even players at some of these other schools, talking about how, it's one of those years, anybody can beat anybody, well, except for Alabama. And this everyone's just so resigned to that, that they're head and shoulders above everyone else, which is weird and not normal, even when Alabama looks that way, just that you have some of these other contenders admitting that. And I think, it's still hard to tell exactly how good Alabama is because of the level of competition they've played. And, I am very excited for their LSU game for that reason. I mean, Tua has not come close to playing in the fourth quarter yet. We don't know. We know what we saw him in the title game. We know what it takes, when he needs to be clutch. But they just haven't been in a situation like that. You're in games now where they're up by, 20, 30 points, and you have announcers openly wondering if they should kick a field goal just to get practice for their field goal kicker. I mean, it's crazy. And, you forget they have a punter, it's a weird season for them too. And I believe that they're very, very good, but I think we're going to learn a lot about them when they play LSU at Tiger Stadium on the road at night. It should be by far their toughest game. And, at least they'll be going up against a good defense, and we can maybe see Tua get to the fourth quarter. I mean, that's kind of the weirdest but most entertaining thing that he, the Heisman favorite hasn't played in the fourth quarter this year. It's such a bizarre stat. And everyone just keeps wondering, like, will he? I mean, the LSU game would be the one if he does. So we'll see. But yeah, it's been strange. because everyone outside of them looks, flawed and has been inconsistent at times, and then Bama just, continues to roll, and it seems unfair that they have a quarterback like Tua now.
Well, when you look at the top 25 right now, Nicole, what teams have been surprises for you?
I would say, keeping it to the Big Ten, or starting with the Big Ten, I really thought that the West and that Wisconsin would be as usual, that they would just dominate and no one else would really have a chance. And they're just not having the season that they had hoped that they would. And so, I've been really impressed by Iowa. I think they're playing some of the best football in the country right now, both sides of the ball. And Northwestern is still in the mix too in the West. And so they're interesting to me, and then I think I wasn't expecting Miami to drop off this much and to have all of this uncertainty with the quarterback situation, going back and forth on who's going to start. I really thought that they would kind of be the front runner in the Coastal and set up another conference championship game in the ACC against Clemson. So, that's been surprising. And then teams like an Auburn, FSU, those, they're worse than I was expecting. The Pac-12 has just been a mess, and then now they're beating each other. So honestly, a lot of the top 25 surprises me and is changing drastically week to week. But I would say the number one biggest surprise in a positive direction for me this season has been Kentucky. And they've looked really good. Benny Snell is legit. Josh Allen's one of the best defensive players in the country. So from a pleasant surprise standpoint, got to be Kentucky. They're actually still in the mix in the SEC East, and it's almost November.
Well, that's very true. It's going to be an interesting stretch run in November, so we shall see. A few more thoughts on Michigan, though, before we let you go, Nicole. From the time Shea Patterson was cleared to play, as you know, expectations around here were really amped up. But have you seen from him so far what you think would lead you to believe he might be that missing piece that can push Michigan to a Big Ten championship?
Yeah, I definitely think you've seen glimpses of that. And I think what was tough was I think a lot of people expected to see everything against Notre Dame, and that's a tough environment, tough first game for a transfer quarterback. And so I think now you're starting to see him ease in. There were a lot of times in the Michigan State game, though, that I had wished that they'd called for more passes and for more deep balls, because he can throw a pretty ball, and Michigan State's passing defense is not very good. And so I think there were probably more opportunities there than we didn't even see. We saw a few, and they made the highlight reel. Mm-hmm. But, I think that letting him air it out a little bit more, would be nice, because that's been an issue, with the stagnant offenses in years past. And then this, you just kind of, everyone puts 8 in the box and you can't run. And then, be in third and long situations. And I don't think you need to be like that. You don't need to call games like that. When you have Shea Patterson, he can also get some stuff done with his legs. So I like what I'm seeing from him. It seems like he's getting more comfortable, getting more confident. It seems like they are continuing to open up the playbook for him as the weeks go on. And so I think he should be and can be that missing piece, because as much as people want to talk about, how improved different quarterbacks were, or how, what Jake Rudock did, or different things in those last few years, this really should be a big step up at the position and for the offense overall. And it is, I think, so far.
Well, a final question for you, Nicole. It's been almost 4 years since Jim has been back in Ann Arbor. We all know expectations were probably ridiculous when he signed, for a lot of money, I know, because we hear about that all the time too. But do you think from a national perspective, he has underachieved at this job so far?
Well, it's interesting timing to think about that, because I think you could certainly have had that conversation in the off season, and you can have that conversation while also acknowledging, as you know, the dynamics at Michigan are not. Mm-hmm. People would be like, are they going to fire him? Of course not. He is going to be there as long as he wants to be, and he is not going to leave until he has this thing in the position that everyone wants it to be in. And so, they're just going to have to work through things like and again, some of the stuff he's already knocked off his checklist, but it was the records against the rivals. It was playing ranked teams on the road. It was things like that, which are big deals, especially for any coach, but especially a coach at Michigan. So I think, that fans understood that they had to be patient, but they could also be frustrated at the same time. But I think people are very excited about the direction of this season, and what they're seeing that are different about, the offense and being able to keep pace in some of these games. I think the way that they were able to pull away from Michigan State, was important because it shouldn't have been a close game. They outplayed them in every area of the game. And so I think when you see teams play the way they should, win games where they are better, where they are more talented, where they are more physical, that's what's encouraging, because it's just been a long time since Michigan has been able to play well in the big games. And so I think, I was at Michigan during the Rich Rod era, and one of the most frustrating parts for fans of that era was just being not competitive at all against good teams. And so, you've seen issues against the good teams under Harbaugh, but this year feels different, and now everyone thinks differently about that Notre Dame loss as well, because we've acknowledged that that's a really good team. So I think it's shifting, but I think you're always going to be measured at a place like Michigan, again, with the record against the rivals and getting to Big Ten title games. So I think if Michigan were able to get to Indianapolis this year, that would be huge, because that's exactly why you brought Jim Harbaugh back, to get you in that picture. Because if you're in the race for a Big Ten championship, you're in the national championship picture too. And so I don't know if that's going to be this year, but they certainly look like they're going to be right on the doorstep.
Well, our guest today has been Nicole Auerbach, senior writer from The Athletic, covering college football and the national scene. Nicole, I think some of my listeners think I'm on the payroll at The Athletic, because it's a daily read for me, and I like to talk about it. I have Cody Stavenhagen on, who and Brendan Quinn, who brought me over. Tell the listeners, what makes The Athletic different and how they can subscribe or try it out.
Well, Michigan fans are a little spoiled, I think, because the two guys you just mentioned are terrific.
Yes.
And so they're worth the price of admission alone. But you also get national coverage. I obviously am biased too, but I think it's really good storytelling. It's not hot takes. It's, you get time to deeply report and write good stories. And plus the no ads and pop-up videos just make it a much more enjoyable experience. I mean, I think the app is great, as I'm sure you know. And it's kind of changed the way that I read sports stuff, because I used to not want to read anything on my phone because I would be ducking and trying to avoid ads, and I don't have to do that anymore. So, I think that it's just been, a really cool place to work, to have that freedom to be creative and to do different types of stories. And like I said, I mean, Cody and Brendan are the best of the best, and so Michigan fans really do get their money's worth if they want to subscribe. And I wouldn't make that up for other fan bases. I wouldn't go that far, but this fan base, you really do get some excellent writers, and especially in the larger Detroit site and market too. Katie Strang's terrific too. So, it's been a really cool place to work, and it's been awesome to see people support us.
Well, we'll put the information up in the link on our show notes page, and as you said, Brendan and Cody, who are regulars on this show, well worth the read, and Nicole Auerbach, who covers college football in the national scene. You're going to do some basketball this winter too, Nicole?
Yeah, that's still up in the air a little bit. But yeah, I did last year after football season ended, and saw Michigan at the Final Four and all of that. So hopefully we'll be able to do some basketball too once football season ends, which is kind of crazy to think about. We're already in week 8.
Well, keep up the great work, Nicole. It's been great having you on the show, and I hope you'll come back again. Thank you for your time.
All right, thanks for having me. Happy to come back.
Quick Hits is next as we wrap it up for another week here on The Michigan Man on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. On Quick Hits today, the Big Ten fined Michigan State $10,000 for their part in not taking control of the pregame situation last week. Commissioner Delaney said it could have been a bad situation, and MSU should have handled it better. Coach D'Antonio, Jim Harbaugh, and Devin Bush were all officially reprimanded for their parts in the event. I'm sure we're going to hear more about it in the coming weeks, months, and yes, years. Rashawn Gary's mom went public with her thoughts on his injury. She has not liked the speculation surrounding her son's situation and sought to clarify his status. She said the AC joint injury was suffered before the season started. Rashawn played until the pain was just too much.
He was advised that 4 to 6 weeks of rest and rehab would be needed, and that if he played with the injury or came back early, he might require surgery. Jim said Rashawn practiced last week, so he must be feeling better. It will be his decision when he's ready to play. Next week, Penn State rolls into town, and it will be another big test for us. On Tuesday's Game Day show, my guest will be beat writer Nick Baumgartner from the Detroit Free Press. Then on Thursday, we're scheduled to have longtime Penn State radio voice Steve Jones on the show, so make sure you join us next week for all of that. As much as I love Michigan football, I do love this bye week. It gives us a chance to sort of recharge our batteries and get ready for the stretch run, and still watch a lot of good college football on Saturday afternoon and evening. So enjoy this Wolverine bye weekend, everyone. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Until next time, take care, and as always, go Blue.
Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!